We had leads at the time on UBL. So hearing that we're going to go jump and do Iraq was more like why the fuck would we go do that right now? You know, if it's a real threat, Saddam's been there for years. Can't we wait, 3 years, 2 years? Because all the guys who are here now, all the guys I work with are the same guys that will have to be moved out in order to really take Iraq. So none of us believed, we just believed it was all bluff. It was all over the news, all the UN shit and that. So we believed it was just a bluff. And then it was announced that CENTCOM was starting planning conferences down in Tampa. So they were planning the war in Iraq before any of the UN stuff had happened. And in conjunction with that, they were sending out, here's what we know so far. So we got, and it was right about Christmas. I can't remember before or after because we didn't really celebrate Christmas. We were doing ops. It was in the Christmas time. We got a packet. Here's the packet Colin Powell's going to eventually brief the UN on. Here's the logic of why we have to invade Iraq. And so me and Spider went into a room to look at these satellite photos. Now, again, the history, the 1 year in Afghanistan could also be called a year of disproving the validity of any satellite photo. Because every satellite photo, remember you asked me before about Shahi Kot, I was told there's no one there. We've got satellite photos, and all their low-tech guile defeated those satellite photos. They had tarps over their dish because satellite photo didn't see any of those. Of course, you don't see people because they're sleeping, they're camouflaged, they're in their tents, whatever. So, a guy on the ground foundational lesson is never believe a satellite photo or never take it as a foundational fact. It can be a corollary, a contributing fact. So we start looking at these, and these are the famous, I think there's 7 pictures, same one, 7 satellite photos that Colin Powell showed the UN. We had all 7. They were all different versions of the same thing. They were convoys lined up next to buildings in Baghdad and next to buildings in a remote outpost about 40 miles into the desert, the middle of the desert, western desert from Baghdad. And we just started looking at them. And a satellite photo, an Intel satellite photo always comes, it's the photo, but the photo doesn't mean anything. You right away default to the call-out boxes that have little lines to tell you what each thing is. And so, we started reading the call-out boxes, and this truck was a decontamination truck. That's what the call-out box said. The guys around it were security members, obviously securing a high-value type item. And the buildings they were next to all had this common denominator. They had this square thing on the roof about 6 feet by 6 feet and about 3 or 4 feet high on top of the roof. Each of the buildings had this thing, which the call-out box called an air purification system. So this guy, my agency counterpart, in addition to being a great leader and diplomat, he's also funny as shit. So he immediately switches to a Pulp Fiction like voice, and he goes, "Okay, let me just get this shit straight. So this fucking thing right here, this decontamination truck, looks a hell of a lot like every water truck we've seen driving around in Iraq for years. And if you were driving 40 miles out into the middle of the desert to a place that doesn't have any water, wouldn't you take a water truck with you?" I'm like, "Fucking A, man." And he goes, "Next thing, these air purification systems, these air that purify the air, doesn't that look like the same thing we got on top of our buildings, an HVAC system? And wouldn't you have a heating and air conditioning system on top of every building where the temperature fluctuates between 107 and 38 degrees, which is constant in Iraq? The nighttime is freezing, the days are hot as shit." And I'm like, spot on. And I go, and those security guys standing guard, zoom in on that one. And we had it on a big screen and attached it up, and he zooms in, and the guy's fucking taking a piss, very clearly taking a piss. He's not pulling security.
Holy shit.
So these are the seven satellite photos.
Oh my
gosh. And again, the lesson out of that I'd pass on to everyone who's listening is anytime you see a photo or a video that's narrated, or a photo with call-out boxes, get rid of the call-out boxes, get rid of the narration, watch the video without the narration, look at the satellite photos without the call-out boxes. Then pop those up and see if it matches what you take away from what you see. That's common sense. That's allowing your common sense to operate without being prejudiced by someone trying to hand jam to please their masters. Those intel guys were probably told, this is for sure WMD activity, prove it. Show me that this picture is that. And that's why they put those call-out boxes on there. So we were kind of in shock. We didn't know Colin Powell was going to use those at the UN. We were kind of in shock. As I told you, there was already a planning conferences. So we both, as we did so many times, went up both our chains of command and said, hey, I don't see what they're saying in those satellite photos. It looks like water truck. Everybody takes a water truck wherever they go. There's no water out in the desert, so that place has to have a water truck visit it. That's why he's there two different times. It probably comes every week to refill their tanks. And every building in Iraq has an HVAC system on top of it, just like they do in America. But, that went nowhere. That went nowhere. Yep. And only like when I rethought of that, when you asked me to come back and talk about it, and I started putting Iraq into the context of today. So today it's 2026. So we're 23 years removed from that moment. And in 23 years, we never have found any evidence of chemical or biologic weapons in Iraq. And that's not, though, the lesson. The lesson is this, and it's so applicable when you put it in context of 2026 and these color revolutions, that again, these unelected government administrators from the State Department and CIA have executed all across the world, including Ukraine, as we talked about. That was totally manufactured, Maidan revolution, protests, same thing they did in the U.S. in 17 and 18. That's what a color revolution is. It's the tech approach, the indirect approach to doing what we did in the war of Iraq, regime change, overthrowing a government, installing your friendly boy Friday.
Straw man.
Yeah, to be the president. And so when you think about that, when you think about this strategy of taking out heads of state or governments as a strategy, and in order to execute that strategy, you're using a intelligence system that has been proven, empirically proven over and over to be fundamentally flawed. And that's why color revolutions need to be outlawed. That's why the whole forced regime change thing needs to be the absolute last resort, because it's usually based on bad intelligence. And in this case, saying that up front, now you're going to hear everything we're doing, and every guy who got killed there, those decision makers have that blood on their hands, those individuals. And so Colin Powell took those 7 slides to the UN on the 6th of February, and just to, re-blew myself on it, I watched the videos. They're still online of his presentation, and
Are they really?
Yeah, he starts it off with, everything I'm going to show you is based in hard empirical facts. There is no gray area here. What I'm about to show you is empirical proof that Saddam has violated the 1991 UN treaty that was made after the UN war, that he could not. And
We toppled an entire fucking country
yep.
off of a water truck, a guy taking a piss, and some air conditioners on a fucking
And
roof.
an HVAC system. Yeah, it's a great way to put it. And it's why we need to fucking outlaw this shit, because these people who don't know anything, they've never experienced the real world, they don't have any operational experience, are making conclusions to support their own emotional proclivities. They're usually steeped in politics.
Is it emotional though?
It's not logical.
Why do you think we went in there?
I think oil has a lot to do with it, but it was just a thing. I think the hubris of, look, we just fucking were successful in Afghanistan. We weren't yet, but the first year was highly successful in Afghanistan. No one thought we'd kick the Taliban out, be able to put a new government that seemed like it was for the people in power that quickly. So I think hubris was a big part of it, overconfidence. And then just, I've never liked this guy. This is where the emotion comes in. I've never liked Saddam. We should have gotten him back in 91. It was a mistake not to get him in 91. Remember, Bush 1 did 91. Bush 2 did the Iraq War. So there's a connection there too. He's emotionally focused. And then what I told you about the Ukraine war with Trump initially getting nothing but fucking horrifically bad intelligence from the individuals around him, I believe that that's the main flaw of Bush. Bush wasn't an independent thinker. He wasn't a critical thinker. So he defaulted to Cheney and Rumsfeld, two septuagenarians who also didn't know shit about shit, both 25 millionaires and above, 25 to 50 million each.
Cheney did know a lot about something, and that's logistics.
He did.
With his fucking company, KDR.
No doubt. So all that...
Which ran all logistics in both wars.
Exactly.
There's the fucking connection.
Exactly.
Dick Cheney, fucking...
Corporate, profit, obsessed, no doubt. And dude, and then, but the ignorance, the naivete, and then, what's disgusting is their inability to think forward in time. Fucking guys are going to die. Civilians are going to die. And because you're fucking hand jamming something through that is not hard evidence. You just think it's good enough because you already know we need to get rid of Saddam. We need a friendly government in Iraq, which we still don't have today.
But gee, I wonder why.
Exactly. Because we can't, that's the flaw of the color revolution. You can't pick the best leader for a country. You cannot. The country needs to pick the best leader for the country. And we've now seen what that looks like. It's someone who loves their people, loves their country. Mission Men and Me puts the country's purpose first, their citizens second, and themselves last. That's been toppled. It's me, mission, and men is last to all these globalists. And I think that was the way Iraq was. It's horrific what they did, but
I wonder if there are any other countries in the Middle East that wanted us to topple Iraq.
Almost assuredly. So I'm sure Saudis did, and the Saudis don't like the Iranians either. So, but you've got oil companies, you've got oil lobbyists that influence that. Your point on Cheney is exactly right. It might not have been the main reason, but it's the inertia that makes these decisions final. He's like, fuck, if we do this, I make another 20 mil in zero strike options that were given to me for free for being CEO of that company. So, that's why you've got to bring in ground truth. You got to bring in objective thinkers. You got to bring in people who don't have agendas.
I mean, that amount of greed to topple a country and put your own people at risk, how many people died in Iraq? Do you know?
I think it's 4,000.
How many amputees?
Yeah. How many horrific burn victims.
Cancers. that are still going on today from all the fucking
PTSD,
shit, PTSD,
TBI.
traumatic brain injury. I mean, it is divorce, fatherless kids, all for a fucking logistics company
Yeah.
in a water, and they fucking called a water truck, a fucking air conditioner, and a guy taking a piss.
Yeah.
They manipulated the fucking UN
Yeah.
with a water.
Yep.
It's just, it's so far out there, it doesn't even fucking seem real.
Yeah. And I was still, until really even these last 5 years ago with the pandemic and the 2020 election and whatnot, I still always believed, our government, will collectively make the right decision. They can't be this
Had a
fucking
heart.
dumb. Yeah. They can't be this fucking ignorant. There's no such thing as government-wide conspiracies. So none of us still believed, even we sent all this back, sent it back to, I mentioned the CENTCOM planning thing, and I had my point of contact. I was, still the ops officer. So I sent back to my ops and CO, hey, I need you to go down to CENTCOM planning conference tomorrow. Here's the list of what I want you to tell them. And we've redone the satellite photos with our own call out boxes. I want you to present them. He's, Roger that, sir. Can't wait. Calls me back next day. I'm like, how's it going? He goes, they won't let me come to the meeting. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, the CENTCOM planning meetings are for 06s and above only. And right there, I was like, we are fucked.
No matter where you're watching the Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this at all, anything, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a review.